Kia ora, g'day. Welcome back once again here with part 5 of my reaction to Mr. Brad Geary, former Navy SEAL commander, on the Resilience Show podcast, talking about the truth about buds and moral courage. So let's jump back in.
Total stud. I pulled her in the room with my CMC afterward. Hey, what happened? By the way, we're a learning organization. What can we be doing better? You're clearly a minority here as a female. Did we provide you a quality of opportunity? Did you feel like you had a fair shot? All the questions. Absolutely. 100%. Yes, sir. Professional program. I was very proud of our instructors. But then in the report that went up, it was great. My Commodore at the time was talking to the Admiral and he said, hey, sir, just got to let you know, she didn't make it. She quit on after whatever. And the Admiral said, well, and this is Wyman Howard again. Love this dude. He said, well, she didn't make it. Well, should we change the standard to accommodate that maybe? And the Commodore is like, no, sir. The standard's a standard. She just didn't make it. And then the Wyman Howard goes, good. That was a test. You passed. I was like, yes, we had such support.
That's good. I'm glad that was a test. One of having those small wins. I was thinking when I heard that, I was like, what an idiot. But I take that back.
Support at that leadership at that time. To hold the standard. So 100%, I guarantee with my reputation on the line. Every female that got into the program earned everything she accomplished. And we held the line for sure.
Well, I'll say this, not as a service member, as an American, thank you, because, this isn't a political thing. This is a national security.
That's right.
issue. And the standards cannot be changed for anything. I mean, if one day, some stud female becomes the first Navy SEAL, then
great.
It's like, I don't pretend to know the American system, but it's national and international. Lives are on the line. It's life and death in that space. And if they meet the standard and they get through, kudos to them. Got no issue. But yeah, if they're not, none of this accommodating, changing the standards to accommodate. I'm glad that was a joke and that it was a test, and that whoever it was that he was speaking to and saying that to, that they passed. Because it's not about diversifying and having equality and having inclusion in a space like that. Everybody's got to go through the same door to earn their place in that unit. It doesn't matter if you're an ethnic minority, it doesn't matter what gender you are. You need to be able to meet the standard. And if you can meet the standard, the same as everybody else, same as those in the past, same as those there now, same as those that will come in the future, then more power to you. But if you don't meet the standard, then don't expect any special treatment to get in.
Good for her. But, we could talk about the operational aspects of that after, but I mean, but the standard should never be compromised.
The standard's a standard. And like you said, and like I said, when we graduated the SWIC graduate, she was great because at her graduation, she pulled me aside before, she said, hey, sir, I don't want today to be about me. And I know there's pressure, but she said, it's about my class. It's about us. It's about the team. And I was like, dude, I love that. That's exactly why you made it. And so in my speech, I said, listen, I appreciate that. I have to at least address this because you broke, right. You paved a path. So the way we framed it, it was great. We said, hey, today is like any other day. We are producing some SWIC warfighters. One just happens to be a female. So we welcome a sister into the brotherhood. And that's the only thing we do. And after that,
that's
just
awesome
about the candidates.
I mean, for me personally, there's certain jobs that, I don't see a female fitting into that culture and it'd be a operational, liability. It just, Marine Corps infantry. I personally don't see that, but, in a job like SWIC, I mean, I think that's a great place for a young woman to go and test her grit and go serve in that capacity.
If they meet the standard, they meet the standard.
I think it's great.
We used to say the cold Pacific Ocean does not discriminate.
Yes.
She dishes out equal suffering to all. Whatever you look like, she doesn't care.
Well, I mean, I think statistically, females carry more body fat, so they probably have an advantage there.
There you go. There you go. That's true. That's
a good positive way of looking at it from a female perspective. Anybody that's maybe looking at going into that, that's a good point. Whether or not it plays out in reality, though, is another thing. But Yeah. Anyway,
probably true. Yeah. So again, yeah, and that's the problem with equity, right? Is if you try to accommodate every individual person's strength or weakness and equalize the playing field, well, it's a never-ending game. So okay, what's next? Short guys can do more pull-ups and push-ups because they have less distance to travel and less weight to push for that distance. So should we make them do more?
Everybody had a hole in their shoulder from the Zodiacs carrying the boats for me, but I had one on top of my head.
Yeah. So you can't equalize it. And so it's a fool's errand to try. And so instead, we build the standard based upon the requirements. What is the warfighter requirements downrange? What do our missions require? What does our nation require? Now that determines the standard. And then the standard's the standard. And you meet it or you don't. But like you said, it's a national security issue if you start diluting the standard, because now you're diluting what the capability is downrange.
100%.
Yeah.
So in this generation, I've heard you mention before that this generation is different, but not weaker.
Right.
In some aspects, they're maybe even better.
Yeah.
What can you say about this current generation, becoming Navy SEALs? And who some of the candidates actually are?
Yeah, they're great. They're great. And it's super fun to make fun of the generation behind us, right? I mean, the boomers love to make fun of the Gen Xers. We love to make fun of the millennials, and now everyone loves to make fun of Gen Z. That's fine. Once we get past that part, it's important to, as leaders, understand that there are massive generational differences. And if we're not studying those and we're not evolving our leadership techniques to be relevant there, then we're making mistakes. And we're failing. And in an all-volunteer military, we're going to start driving them away, because one of the nuances I've noticed of Gen Z is they have a very low tolerance for BS. Whereas like a Gen Xer, baby boomer would be yelling at me because this is the way they learned and it's what the World War II generation taught them and blah, 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 blah. I'd be like, well, roger that. Well, I'll just endure this, this incompetence or this toxic leader that I see at this level because, this is just the way it goes. Gen Xers are very impatient with that. And so they're going to vote with their feet. They may come to us. We may have a great surge right now of recruitment, but I can tell you, having talked with a lot of them in the teams right now, they're like, hey, I'm a little underwhelmed at what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to walk away from it. And so we're going to have retention problems, which is what we are seeing right now. They are, like I said, they're way more cognizant. Back in the day, we would work out and then we'd go eat pizza and drink a beer. They're more conscious of what they're putting into their bodies. They're dialing in their nutrition plans. So they're much more efficient machines, so to speak, physically. So they're showing up in better shape, I think, than we ever did. One of the things I've talked with Preston.
Wow, that's a cool observation. And great to hear it from this guy who's served at the highest level and overseen that whole process. Candidates coming through. I have to admit, I've seen and heard and had the privilege to speak with a few people that seem to be wired that way. They're really wanting to dial in on their nutrition. What should they be eating? How should they be recovering? Recovery seems to be a hot topic for people that I've been speaking with anyway, in regards to their preparation for selection. And, I think there's value and stuff in that, in any and all of it. Likewise, I think there's value across the generations with regards to the preparation and all that sort of stuff and what people are doing. And then operationally, when people are in the unit itself, probably not smart to carry on, doing PT, then eating pizza and having a beer and day in, day out. I never saw that whilst I was in. And maybe maybe that was the generation before me, is what I was trying to say. But I never saw that while I was in. At the same time, saying that, I saw during my time, and myself included, would eat whatever we felt like eating. As long as we were always meeting the standard and being above the standard or being better than the standard required to be there and to be operational, like, it was a good space to be. But it's interesting hearing Brad speak about the generation coming through, dialing in their nutrition, their training, their recovery, etc. I guess there's value in that. Or not, I guess there is value in that. But there's no substitute for hard work, I guess, is where my mind always goes. It may be just old-fashioned, but there is no substitute for good old-fashioned hard work. Eat what you need, eat what you want, within reason, and rest when you need to, but don't go resting just because you're being lazy, and or because the weather looks a little bit miserable outside or whatever. Anyway.
Line about a lot at the mission critical teams, and he studied this stuff for years. The thing that they probably suffer at the most is, he calls it either resiliency or robustness. I can't remember the difference, but one he describes as the ability to take a punch. not physically, but symbolically. The next one was your ability to recover after that, punching it back in the game. So to pick yourself back up after failure. And I can't remember which one's which under his terminology, but that's what we've noticed where some of them suffer at. When they fail, they have a hard time getting back up and getting back in the game. They'll self-defeat and spiral sometimes. So a lot of people will be like, oh, they're just weaker because of that. No, that's not true. They are much more mindful than we are. They're much more aware of their surroundings, and their ability to maneuver through that space is way more astute than what we were going through. So there's some things they excel at way better than our generations, but there's some things they need to work at, like every generation. This doesn't mean they're just weaker. It means we need to tailor our leadership and start tailoring our program to figure out, okay, how do I build that in them then? Because we know we need that. They already have things that we love, but we know we need this as well. How do we add that into the curriculum? How do we help build that in and help them fall forward instead of self-defeat? And I've told
far out. That's really powerful. As I listen to that, it's a cool frame of mind to hear from this guy as a leader. We need these soldiers, these operators, to have these skills, these traits, these abilities, these tools in their tool bag to be able to pull out and draw upon when they need them. How do we teach them that? How do we embed that? How do we deliver that in a way? How do we exemplify that? And those are good questions, but they're also hard things. And it's probably part and parcel of the reason why I constantly get hit with the question, what mental strategies and what mental tools did you use to get through selection, to get through two selections, because they were both very different? How, is there a course of study? Is there anything that I can provide? And I'll be honest, man, I don't think what I've provided has been anything revelatory in terms of, this is what I've been waiting to hear. This is what I've been looking for. It has just been really simple in terms of that resilience and the mindset and the approach. And I think as I listened to him speak, I think there may have even been a part of me as I was going through, not seeking for that, not asking questions in and around that, just shows where my head was at, I suppose, or where it wasn't at. As I'm listening to him, I'm thinking to myself, I always felt like there was just a level of expectation that you have these traits, that you have this resiliency, that you have the ability to take a punch, to just get up and keep moving, to take criticism and get up and keep going, to not really question things as long as it wasn't putting my own life or other people's lives in danger. From a training perspective and preparation to get to where you want to get to, there's risk with everything, and yet jumping out of a plane is putting my life and my peers in danger. That's not what I mean. All the training and all the steps leading up to that, ground training, the equipment, the kits, the checks, etc., the buddy checks, all of that sort of thing, all played a part. So it's still risky, but there's things in place that help mitigate that risk, if that makes sense. What I meant was, if it was just blatantly no preparation, no training, and just going head first charging at something without any idea or any training or preparation or rationale prior to. So that's what I mean by that. But hearing him speak about that and how do we deliver and give these candidates coming through these things, I wonder where they're landing. I wonder how they're going about doing it. What sort of things are they doing? Aside from, is there anything else that they're doing to help build mental resiliency? Is it training? Is it classroom training? Is it, all of that sort of stuff, or courses? For me, I can't get away from the fact that doing hard things consistently, repeatedly, over and over again is what builds a heck of a lot of mental resilience and emotional intelligence and belief. Anywho,
stories about guys who failed one evolution in buds, total stud, was doing great, failed one evolution and quit. Don't do that, dude.
Right.
But you can't unring the bell in our community.
Right.
That's a sacred thing. Once you ring it, you're done. Sorry, man. But okay, how do we get left to that decision? How do we help build some resiliency in that guy? Because he could have been a great SEAL, but he let himself spiral emotionally and cognitively after one failure and then quit. So I think that's what we need to kind of zone in on in our preparatory program and in boot camp as we're taking these young Americans from their homes. I don't know how they were raised. Maybe they were helicopter parented. That seems to be a problem these days. Well, that's going to That's going to decrease your resilience if mommy and daddy removed all the obstacles from you as you grew up through your teenage years. Okay, I can't fix 18 years of that, but we can certainly start trying. We can certainly start baking in designed failure, organized failure, with left and right constraints and limits to help you grow through that. We can do that at boot camp. That's easy. These are like easy things to do that we should absolutely be doing to help them accommodate where their generation might need some work. But we should also be capitalizing on where they're great, and they're great in a lot of spots for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing to hear that, because I mean, you can't pick the culture.
No,
you got to take them from where they are to where you want them to be.
That's right.
That's leadership. Bring someone from where they are to where you want them to be.
That's right.
And that's a responsibility on the leader to do that. So to recognize that.
Yeah. Simon Sinek talks a lot about this in his Leaders Eat Last book. I love it.
Yeah.
And he basically said, hey man, you are a weak leader if you're just going to damn the next generation and criticize them instead of evolving as a leader. And they're going to vote with their feet, and your organization is going to implode from the inside out because
it's a cool statement. Valid points too, in terms of, not, and I don't think I see leaders these days in conventional or SF. I don't know. I'd be surprised. I'd probably be shocked if there were guys in there that are just ragging on or bagging out on the future generation, the ones coming through, and always, talking about how weak they are or whatever, which I love what Brad is saying here. They're not. They've got a lot of strengths in a lot of areas, and then they've got a lot of other areas where they can likely improve, as with every generation, as he's mentioned already. That's cool.
You'll be leading nobody very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations. You're a really good leader of nobody.
Alone. Yeah. Well, at the command, you faced, lots of issues. For those who hadn't seen what Brad went through as commander of Buds during a tragic loss of one of the students, death of one of the students. You could go back and watch Sean Ryan. But I want to talk about it a little bit here. But before I get into it, I kind of want to give my position on this.
Please.
When you're doing special operations training, a death of anyone is tragic. Like whether in training or in a battlefield, it's someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's brother, sister, friend. It's always tragic, but that death cannot change the standards that we have for this training. This training is very difficult and it's dangerous, and accidents are going to happen, or things are going to happen. And so one of the things I just so much respected about you is that it would have been so easy to change things over this, to change training, but we can't do that.
Yeah.
I want to pause that there and just acknowledge the comments that the host here is saying. I think his name is Chad. I don't know how to pronounce his surname, so I'm not going to even try until I hear it. But I will go and watch the Sean Ryan Show interview with Brad Geary in terms of what happened there, because I don't know the story, but it sounds like they're going to talk a little bit about it here. But what he's saying is true. Like in a lot of places, and mining, oil and gas, construction as an example are probably some of those places, and then even then depends on the level. But oftentimes, if and when a tragedy happens, like the loss of life in training in particular, I can't say I've noticed it or that I noticed it during my time in the military, but there seems to be this knee-jerk reaction to want to change everything, review everything, and then change things with good intentions. Don't get me wrong, with good intentions, because we want to avoid people dying during training, military or anywhere otherwise. But that's a part of the process. It is high-risk work. It is dangerous work. It is work that you need to train for as safely as you can with the systems that are in place to try to mitigate that risk as well as you can. And then people need to be willing to do it. So if I use parachuting as an example, high risk, dangerous. Military kit and equipment, weather could turn bad. Your lines could get tangled up. Your main chute might not open. You may have to go into reserve. You could have a double failure. Main chute and reserve both fail, and you pass away, which would be terrible if anything like that happens or happened. But it is a reality in terms of the training, like part of the job and parts of a job, depending on where you go and serve, may require you to do that for you to have that skill, for you to have that courage to be able to do that. And you do not want to be applying that on the day, having done all this ground training, but never actually physically having jumped out of a plane and training, and just having done all the ground training, and then operation comes up, and then, okay, you've done the ground training, now you've got to jump in now, because we wanted to keep you safe and mitigate the risk of anybody dying in training. But you've done all the ground training, so here's your gear, put on your gear, you're going up, and then you're going to jump out of the plane for the first time. Like, that's not smart. And likewise is changing and removing and cancelling that sort of aspect. And there's a whole bunch of things, only using blank rounds and then only issuing live rounds if you deploy on operations. Well, that's just silly, all of that sort of stuff. So I'm pleased to hear the host talk about that. And it's going to be interesting, because what I'm hearing is, I'm assuming that there must have been a big push to review and change things, which I think probably would have diluted the end product in terms of the soldier coming out the other end, but also dilute and restrict the training and the level of training which the candidates need to identify and determine for themselves if this is the type of job that they want to do or not.
Our nation depends on us not doing that.
Yeah.
And not being cowering to those kind of things. And so you really handle that well. And look, we can never compromise this training. It's so important. Yeah. This is the training that puts these, these warriors at the tip of the spear that protects that we're going to go and, sleep peacefully at night.
That's right.
Because of that. And
that's right.
You and I are both civilians now.
Yeah.
You are, by the way, if it didn't hit you yet, you're a civilian now.
I'm a civilian.
Someone's protecting you now.
Yeah. So, it feels good.
Yeah. But so I just want to say that I stand with you on that.
Yeah. You're right. It's training for warfare and going to war. I mean, there is no more dangerous job out there. Mm-hmm. And you don't train for war by being totally safe. It involves risk. Measured risk, not reckless. We can't be reckless. I've talked a lot about risk over the years. But it's risk. And in that environment, while we should never accept death as the cost of doing business, we must also somehow reconcile the fact that it is a statistical inevitability. It's going to happen. At some point down the road, someone else is going to die, buds. It's going to happen. And it may just be something like the dude's heart explodes because it's just really, really hard training. We see it all the time on sports fields, right? Like some athlete will just drop dead randomly. Their heart just gives out. When you put your body through that strain and that stress, things can happen. Accidents can happen. Mistakes can happen. You can't mitigate all those risks down to zero. And I've talked a lot about this, where you actually increase the risk, and it creates blind risk in a lot of ways. We have to work through that risk. And so there is a very strong temptation when something like this tragic happens. Well, let's create more policies. Let's fix this problem. Well, your first assumption was that there's a problem. And if you start your analysis with a false assumption, you're going to end up with conclusions and policies that are actually going to make things worse, because you're not actually solving a problem. You might be creating more now. And, it's tough. It's tough. But I do believe that we were a safe command before, and we have been a safe command after, and there wasn't much that was needed to be fixed. There's always small things. There's always things we can do better. Of course, no command is perfect. No command is ever resourced, perfectly either. And there's always the dream sheet of like, oh, if we had all the resources in the world, this is what we would do. This is what we would want. This is how we would run business. Well, okay, but we're dealing in a world of finite constraints and real limitations. So I appreciate it. It's a hard line to hold when something goes wrong. Because there is a very strong temptation to say, let's fix this. Okay. Nothing was broken.
Right.
Nothing was broken.
So the candidate was.
I love that. The assumption that there was a problem in the first place. Let's fix this. Nothing was broken from what they could see. It's been tried, tested, and proven. I've used that in multiple other videos and reactions. They've got a system that works. It's been tried, it's been tested, and been proven over and over and over and over again, and it will continue to be that way, and producing the quality and the level of soldiers that they produce as part of their pipeline and their process. Same with the SAS. we've heard of, and I don't know the names or the details or how many, but I've heard of people that have passed away on the SAS selection in the UK, the UKSF selection. I have to admit, I don't know of any that have passed away in the Australian, if any have passed away on the Australian selection or the NZ selection. I don't know that. I don't know if there has been. If there is, I haven't heard of it. But I had heard of, not that I know how many, but I had heard of people passing away and dying on the UK SF selection. So, there's probably a whole bunch of other selections out there as well where tragically people have probably sadly lost their lives. But again, that process, like you said, it's going to be a statistical inevitability. You shouldn't go and think that there's anything wrong or that we need to change it. So, really good words that he's used to describe that and talk through that.
Kyle Mullins.
Yeah.
And it
was broken.
So the candidate was Kyle Mullins.
Yeah.
And it was the incident was during Hell Week.
It was after Hell Week. So Hell Week was complete. We go through a very rigorous medical process after Hell Week and even through Hell Week, like mandatory every day you're getting screenings here. And multiple physicians looked at him, clear bill of health, talked to him, no issues at all. I mean, swollen legs, my knees hurt, whatever.
Sure.
He'd had some breathing problems early in the week, but those had cleared up, and he didn't complain of any breathing problems. 3 physicians looked at him. Okay. That's pretty rigorous, pretty thorough. Even after the inspections, when he was told to rest in his room, one of the physicians did a last minute walk around. Everything's fine. He's laying down listening to music under no distress at all, drinking a Gatorade. And then, at the time, all we knew is that, he quickly decompensated and died. And one of the criticisms was, well, where was your medical? Why weren't they on site? Well, because we had finished medical and he had been given a relatively clean bill of health. And
sorry to cut him off. I just want to speak to this as well. Like, this stuff happens in modern day civilian outside of the medical, where people go to a doctor, to a GP, get diagnosed. I can think of the meningitis stuff that was happening, where people were getting diagnosed and, oh no, you're fine, you're all good, going away, going back home, and then dying. And then there's an uproar going on, attacking doctors and medical professionals. There's people that were going into hospitals and A&Es that were getting told similar things and then being released, told that they could go, and then dying. So, as far as I know, that I don't know if there's been any changes there. Yet there was some media coverage and this and that spoken about it. But just listening to what Brad spoke about in terms of what the candidate received and the checks, man, that level of medical care and attention, which it's surprising from the perspective that I never saw that on New Zealand or the Australian SAS selection, but it's a different environment as well. And the level to which the Navy SEAL process and buds that they're exposed to cold and all that sort of thing for such a long period of time. And the resources that they have, the manpower, etc. I'm not surprised that they take that care, and the young men that they're having coming through, or young men and young women coming through that process. It's not surprising that they conduct that level of checks on each individual at the various stages. So mandatory medical doctor checks each day throughout the buds process. Then they increase them and step them up for different phases and have more frequent checks. It's I don't see how you get much better than that. And then for doctors or people investigation, I suppose, or I assume, criticizing and saying where was the doctors, which is about to get into, which I'm going to hit play on soon, is pretty crazy. When just hearing that little small snippet from my side, not having experienced or having an understanding of what they do, but just hearing that little piece gives me a lot of confidence if I was going onto that course, that, man, they're going to be doing everything they can to make sure that we're okay, that we're functioning well enough to be able to continue.
We were never staffed or equipped or mandated or chartered to be a mission to have a emergency room hospital that's on call 24/7 all the time. That's just not how we were equipped. And there was never a need for that. And so it's an unfair criticism. It'd be the same as saying, if you went to the ER, and they looked at you, you got some problems, but you're doing pretty well. Go home. And if you have a problem, call 911 or talk to your doctor in the morning. That's really the equivalent of how it went at that point. Now, like it or not, that was how we were staffed and mission. That's what we were funded for. and manned for. Well, then he quickly decompensated and died.
What's decompensated?
Sorry, it means it starts just taking. All his vitals start to go down.
Okay.
And we had Navy certified watchstanders there, still on call, walking around, asking guys how they're doing, checking in on them. So it's another misnomer. Back to you had kids watching him. No, I had grown adults who were Navy certified watchstanders watching him.
Right.
Well, that's not enough. Well, okay. That's a matter of debate, and we can change that policy later. But at the time, that was what we were doing.
Just sit in the hospital, it's buds.
Right. That's right. That's right. And so what we know now from obviously from all the evidence that came forward was that he had been using performance enhancing drugs, and at the time, some candidates brought him drugs after our med checks were complete, and our staff was kind of walking away and not getting full eyes on anymore. He took some of those drugs, and it was at that moment, shortly after that, he started decompensating and died.
Wow, far out. That's crazy. I'm just mindful of the time. It's over 30 minutes now. I'm going to wrap this one up here. We'll come back to it later on, but geez, I have been hit up, Have I ever taken performance enhancing drugs? The answer is no. I mean, look at me. I'm a poor advert for somebody if I am and if I was ever taking performance enhancing drugs. But on the back end of that, person also asked me and said, but wouldn't you want to be like at your peak if you were, they asked my thoughts on what about operators working in the special forces being on performance enhancing drugs? Do you think they should be? That's a question that's been asked of me. Maybe I should talk about that in the live tonight. Yeah, maybe I will. Anyway, I'll just give a short answer now. My response has always been no, because we don't get to take them during selection. You don't get to take them during cycle. Yeah, you have some freedom and you can take them after once you're in. But if you've never taken them up until the point of when you actually make it in, why start now? Why start then? Anyway, I could ramble on about that for a lot longer, and I have, and had some other questions come back at me with regards to that. People that haven't served in that space, they were just genuinely curious and having thoughts about it. And I think they were thinking about taking some because they work and train in that gym environment. But each to their own, man. But yeah, my view or take for operators working in that space, man, I would just stay away from it. But that's just my call, my own individual take, and everybody will have their own thoughts on that. Anyway, let's wrap this one up here, although it's a sad part to be pausing on with the loss of life of the person that they're speaking about now. And Brad just giving a bit of context with regards to the rapid decline of this soldier who tragically passed away during the buds. So, yeah, as always, man, if you made it this far, thank you for your time and support. I sincerely appreciate it. And as always, the message is the same. Anybody going through any dark times, difficulties, challenges, just encourage you to keep turning up, keep staying in the fight, keep putting one foot in front of the other and take one day at a time. Know that things can do and will get better and the sun will shine again. So just stick at it. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there's a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.